Hey, I'm Amanda Vernon.
And I'm Father Matt Face, and welcome to We Should Pray,
the podcast in which we discover how prayer transforms tragedy into comedy.
This week, this episode, we talk about how we're called to love.
We talk about holding things in tension, but there actually is no tension at all in this episode.
No, there's a lot of tension.
Skip to the end. No, just actually listen. Listen.
Please listen.
Here we go. Comedy, tragedy, vanity of vanities.
We should pray.
We should pray.
How?
How what?
That's the title of our talk today. How?
Just how?
No, it's how am I called to love? Like specifically.
There you go.
Remember how our previous episode was about who am I called to love? Like specifically?
Yes, I remember that.
And this one is technically just how am I called to love?
Like, specifically?
No, without that part.
Okay.
But I mean, that's implied.
All right, there we go. I like
because
that.
we're building one episode to the other.
Building on each other. That sounds like a good plan.
So, okay. The last episode, though, we kind of left it hanging. It was just kind of like
A dangling participle.
Yeah. And so I thought we could talk about that a little bit to start out, just so that like we are on the same page. And David also had questions. So possibly our listeners, viewers, hi listeners and viewers, might have questions too.
I think that's a reasonable assumption.
Okay, so I closed the last episode by asking you both if you've ever felt like you missed your vocation.
Yeah.
And you both had the same answer.
Yes.
And then afterwards, David was like after we were done filming at a different time, David was like, why did you ask me that? And I was like, I was going somewhere with it, but then we ended the show. And so the question was more about like, do you ever think, like, imagine, like, what if I was in a different vocation? And both of you were like, yeah, maybe I could be a hermit.
Yeah.
Could have been a hermit.
To be a hermit.
A hermit crab.
Yeah, we were like, wouldn't that be great?
And so, but I did want to comment on that actually, because I think it's hilarious that both of you think of the same thing, which is like retreating from society. And you say like, oh, if maybe if I could have a different calling in life.
No offense.
Yeah, but there definitely is something very appealing to that.
Okay. Anyway, so what is funny, if we could just step outside this particular situation, what's funny about it is that, like, I think from a distance, a lot of people might imagine that, like, you being a priest, David being a dad, that, like, you would have like such different, drastically different life experiences, and so your answers would be totally different.
Yeah.
You know, so I just think that's kind of funny. And also today, I was hoping we could talk about like people's sort of perceptions of our vocations, and because like that is like how we specifically are called to love. Everybody in this room is within our vocation.
Yeah, through our vocations.
Yeah.
That's how we love. Yeah.
How we're called to love. And then, so like some of the perceptions of others looking at that, or what they've expressed to us about that. And then also like the challenges just for ourselves internally of like, what are the challenges of how we're called to love? And then hopefully we can laugh at that eventually.
Yeah, that sounds...
But first,
good.
The problems.
Problems with love?
Yeah. Like, I don't know what your problems like.
I don't know what your problems are.
Okay, no.
I hear that a lot, actually. What's your problem? Oh, no, is that different? Okay.
No, we know when people ask you, though, about your life, and they're like, oh, the sacrifices that you make. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I get that all the time when people are like, yeah, but like what you're giving up, it's so hard. It's
Married
so
people
beautiful.
say this to you.
Married people say this to me. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because sometimes it's like much older people, but sometimes it's younger. I mean, it's the whole thing, but it seems to be coming from different places.
Mm-hmm. Not just one demographic of married people who like are in their honeymoon or something.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so to get that all the time, like, oh my gosh, like this is such a sacrifice, and like, yeah, it is. But it also comes with some perks. So, but it's funny because like that's not what. Rarely is that like what people are saying.
Yeah,
so that's always pretty funny.
And also, how many hours have you spent listening to married people?
Yes. So that's the best. That I think is so funny about this whole thing when married people are like, oh my gosh, it's such a sacrifice. Often, in one particular case, I remember very specifically, I was in like a social setting, but there was one person really complaining about her marriage in a good sense, right? But like talking about the struggles, venting a little bit, but for like an hour, and then
the laughter of truth.
Yeah. And then
can't imagine that at all.
I was in the seminary still at this point.
Yeah.
And then like the conversation switched to me, and she was like, oh, like how can you like even imagine like never getting married? And I'm like, well, marriage isn't always easy, is it? And like she laughed, and because we just spent an hour talking about how difficult marriage is.
Yeah. Touche.
Yeah.
We could talk about how we're called to love and the problems of how we're called to love, like in marriage or in celibacy, like between David and me and you. We could talk about those things for a long time.
Yeah.
In this episode, I'd like to focus specifically on our friendship, how we're called to love in our friendship. And then hopefully that will also speak to our listeners and viewers and have something to say, that will have something to say about our respective vocations as well. I don't know if we can make that full circle in one episode, but
And I believe we can.
We'll pray.
We definitely will.
We're praying now.
Amen.
Because Jesus is here.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so a problem for me with how I'm called to love is that I'm called to love selflessly.
Ah.
And I don't want to. And I'm not naturally selfless. Goes against my nature.
What?
Yep.
Your human nature?
Yeah, my human nature.
Yeah.
You know how like being a priest comes naturally to you?
Nope.
Have you seen that video, Fishers of Men? Just kidding, I know.
It's like a pump-up video before a game. Yeah, I've definitely seen Fishers of Men.
I don't know if people are, if that's still like in circulation. I mean, it's on YouTube, so.
It's been a long while since
it's a long
form.
It's like a long form video, so it's not as maybe snappy as like some of the newer vocational videos. But I think like when we were in high school,
it was big then. Yeah,
it was a big YouTube video. Is that right? Anyway, so
it
it's
went
like
Catholic viral.
Yeah, which is a big deal. Let's recognize. So then there's like all of these priests talking about their vocation stories, and I remember just it was inspiring to me as well. Thinking about my own vocation and thinking just how passionately they were speaking about theirs, and and one of the lines that really stood out to me is this priest was like, "It's not natural to be a priest; it's supernatural. It's like fade to black." So, anyway, I want to focus on the not natural part.
Yeah, because it is tough, right? I mean, selfless love, especially.
Yeah, that's
like that's
something.
Super tough. I mean, even like I've been giving a number of talks on that, and I'll be like, so we need to be selfish in our love. I'm like, no, wait, selfless.
You accidentally say selfish. Okay. Which brings me to a point because like there's something in my heart that's, I'm sorry about this, by the way. There's something in my heart that's like, see, gotcha. I knew you were selfish. Like, why? Like, why do I want to prove that you're selfish?
Freud
I don't.
was right.
I don't want. I don't want you to be selfish. You know, and like, I don't want that to be the answer. And yet, there's something in me that's like, see, and I think that goes back to the garden.
The garden.
Yeah.
The rose garden?
No.
Oh, the garden.
Like the Garden of Eden.
Yes. Yes, I suspect it does. Concupiscence.
Yeah. So yeah, I think
Concupiscence.
before that. No, you're right. So there's okay. I don't know about those who are listening, but for me, I feel like when I was growing up, I always heard the story of Adam and Eve, and Eve sinned first because she bit the apple that she wasn't supposed to take. And so she gives into the temptation. And like my image of this scene is like the hand-drawn like little Bible characters from my like children's book, you know, and like the little green, like, is it called a garden snake or a
garter snake?
Garter snake? Why is it a garter snake?
I don't know.
Is it like guarding something? It's like garter.
I think it's gart.
Okay. Is that like a piece of lingerie?
Yeah, maybe that's you wear the snake up high on your thigh. I hope not. That's probably not what it is.
Okay, so this little snake is like little tiny little like, hello, hey you, take the apple, right? And she's like, oh, I guess I will. Like, so like
It's called a garter snake. Garter.
But why?
I'll have to research that.
Thanks.
It was quick on the draw, though.
Okay.
All right, so this little green
the little
snake
comes up, and then Eve's like, "Oh, sure, I'll eat the apple." And then she's like, takes the bite and like ruins her whole life and ruins life for like the rest of humanity.
I got it. Okay. Sorry to interrupt again.
Go for it.
Garter snakes are named after clothing garters. Garters essentially look like stripes. These snakes have stripes down their back, hence the name.
Oh, well, there you are.
Yeah, I was always calling it like a garden snake.
Gardener snake, yeah.
Okay, but here's the here's the thing. Later, like, I don't know, when I was in my late teens or sometime like past the little children's Bible story book,
right.
I heard that like the term for the snake in the garden, when it's translated back, like not in English, is it written in Hebrew?
It was, yeah.
Like in Hebrew, it was more like monster. And so I think it's Scott Hahn, right, David, who talks about this image of.
I heard Jeff Cavins, but maybe Scott too.
So of this image of this monster who could like kill Eve, who comes up to her
like a big
not
beast.
just this little, right, yeah, but something that's towering and right, and so like menacing, so that the question, like, did God really tell you not to eat this, and like if you eat it you won't die, could be more like a threat, like if you I'm
gonna kill you,
unless you eat it, or if you eat, right, there's gonna be consequences if you don't eat it. And so that, I guess that scenario, or picturing it that way, makes more sense to me within the story. And then what is, I think, even more compelling to me as a woman is the fact that, I think it was Christopher West who I first heard ask this question, but he said, where was Adam? And I remember the first time I heard that question, I was like, and there's just something in me that's like innately upset. Like, why? Because it was Adam's job to guard the garden. Like, that's what God told him to do, like to protect the garden, to protect Eve. And he's nowhere to be found. And here's this monster. So who sinned first? And I'll tell you, like, every time I give a talk for women, and I talk about this story, when I say, where was Adam? Every woman in the room goes, and there's just this like, I knew it.
Visceral,
I knew you, right? Like, what is that, right? And so I think that there's that. Can you talk about concupiscence, like, as a word?
Yeah, concupiscence is that pull towards sin, right? Like there is something in us, broken in us, that pulls us or leads us, right? I mean, disposes us to sin, to do things that we know are going to hurt us, that we know are going to hurt others. And like, we can rationalize, like, I wouldn't want to do that. Like, I know that, but there's still that temptation, that pull.
Yeah. And so that's what I experience, personally, like even like in this moment, right? Like, and I can just identify with that story of Eve, of like, where was Adam? And then you see like the blame and the drawing the other person into that temptation with you and all of that, like,
classic sin.
Yeah. And so I think when we talk about like how are we called to love, it's also against a backdrop of our fallen nature.
Absolutely.
And so,
yeah, we are called to love, and our nature is pulling us
in the opposite direction.
Yeah, towards selfishness. Yeah. Which is why we have to be called to love. But.
So when it comes to our friendship,
yeah,
we wrote on the top of the page, maybe we'll give talks together someday. Because I think that's a section of the book that we were kind of like, we were reflecting on as we prayed and talked about this episode. And you said, it was because we were giving a talk and I quoted you. I'm like doubly quoting you right now. Congratulations.
Yeah, there's layers on layers.
And we're giving a talk.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's awesome and so meta that we're like, we're doing the thing that God is calling us to do, and we're talking about it.
We're talking about the doing of it. Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay. So as far as like challenges to how, in particular, you and I are called to love each other, like thinking about when I was a teenager for a second, I remember reading like relationship books. My dad's a psychologist. I like study relationships a lot. I studied them then, took like notes. My dad was psychology and then like communications degree. So
you were just ready for it.
I was, but less I'm the eldest of 7 kids. So I was like born just like helping people sort out their problems. Yeah. And so thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you the youngest or?
4th of 5.
Middle.
Best spot.
Okay. So, I love 4thborns. Don't worry, you guys. They're both 4thborns. I'm surrounded. Help me. Eldest, come to my defense. Okay. Where was I going with this? Just got distracted about being the eldest child.
The relationship advice.
That I received. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So there was this one book in particular that was like about dating, and it was maybe like dating advice for teenage Christians, something like that. And actually a lot of it was really wise. I remember there was this one section that still rings true to me. Like it said, like in a dating relationship, if you're giving that other person all of your time, all of your attention, all of your energy, all of your money, like you're sharing all of that with them, that's not called dating, it's called marriage. And when you break up, it's not just a breakup, it's divorce.
Yeah.
And that really struck me when I was younger, and I still think that rings true now. But there was this one section which I think was so it was just so, I don't want to say black or white. It was just there wasn't much nuance, let's say. And they were saying, like, if you're in a friendship with a guy, or you know him talking to girls, and they're saying, and he's not making a move, then there are 2 options as far as like what that means, right?
Only 2 options.
2 options. Yeah. One of 2 is going to be one of 2 things. Either 1, he's not man enough.
Ooh.
Or 2, he's just not that into you. Right. And so I felt like that, I just grasped onto that. And then I just assumed things from there, especially in our friendship. So later I was like, so it's one of 2 things. So what's going on,
Which one is it?
Yeah. There was no question of like, maybe the timing isn't right, or maybe this is not God's will for you to progress in a relationship, even though maybe the person really likes you or those kind of things. So, but I feel like I don't want to like blame the authors on that, because don't you think like that sort of, what is that? I'm doing this with my hands. Like there's this like divide of like, just like either or, you know, I feel like there's a word for that. That is like
dichotomy.
Yeah, dichotomy.
False dichotomy.
Yeah, false dichotomy. Yeah, that's a good one.
Don't you think that that's like very prevalent in our culture?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so much of our society right now, it's one camp or the other. And if you're not in the one, then you must be in the other.
Oh yeah, because we've talked about this maybe on previous episodes too, about how we're called to hold things in tension.
Yeah, exactly.
And how like we just don't see that in our culture. It's like just choose one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
get rid of the tension. Just commit to one, and then it can't be the other one. And if it's slowly all in.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say now in our friendship, I think your friend, you have so many names for him. What do other people call him? He's also Father Matt. Father Matt Havdi.
Father Matt Havdi.
What do you call him?
I call him just about everything. Some of them are even nice.
But Havdi usually, right?
Yeah, Havdi. I often like to mispronounce his name on purpose and call him Hovd.
He's like, his middle name is, can we say this?
Yes,
his
absolutely.
His middle name is Earl.
Earl.
And so then when all three of us are together, sometimes I just call you Eddie and call him Earl. Yeah. And that's fun.
Yeah, Matthew Earl
he
of Havdi.
He accepts that from me, but I don't think he likes it.
Begrudgingly. Oh, he very much dislikes that name.
Anyway, so Father Havdi, let's call him.
Father Earl.
Okay. He read our book recently. And he was so kind and just gave me a lot of feedback after. All of it was actually really positive. So, and he said, he was like, we just gotta, as a church, I'm paraphrasing. He's like, we gotta, as a church, show people that there are options and that there are different ways of being in relationship and in friendship. Like there's gotta be something between being acquaintances or having sex. And I was like, you got that from our book?
Yeah, and it turns out that's a lot of human life between those two ends, right?
We should pray.
We should pray.
Can we ask for Our Lady's intercession?
Always good. Let's do that.
Okay. You gonna lead us in?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Remember, O most gracious Virgin, that never was it known that anyone who fled to your protection, implored your help, or sought your intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, we fly to you, Virgin of Virgins, my Mother. To you do I come, before you I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in your mercy hear and answer me. Amen.
Amen.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Hey, we're filming this on a feast day.
We are.
Like the feast day of the United States, right?
Yeah. Immaculate Conception. It's a great feast.
Maybe at the end of our talk here, we could talk about like the Immaculate Conception and how like Mary didn't have concupiscence, right?
It's a nice setup for her.
In the meantime,
for us as well, because of her. Yeah.
Okay. My notes here.
Yeah, you should fix that.
No, not that. My notes are that you need to tell us a story about the first time that you heard about theology of the body. I want to preface this by saying, like, I think that we're qualified to speak about how we're called to love and as men and as women and to speak about it with no awkwardness because we are generation 2 theology of the body for sure. I definitely am because, okay, this is a definition I made up by the way.
Generation 2, JP2.
Generation deuce.
Okay, so my definition is that if you're generation 2 TOB, theology of the body, then your parents or your mentor is in life taught you about the theology of the body before you hit puberty. Yes. And for you,
Yeah.
I think you could be a Generation 2 TOB priest.
Okay.
Because you learned about theology of the body before you were
I was ordained. Yeah, definitely. I definitely did.
So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first time, I remember like really being taught about theology of the body was my first year in seminary as a freshman in college. And it was all of us in Old College gathered together for a conference. And we had someone come in from the area who knew all about theology of the body. So she came in to give this talk to us. And it's like 12 of us 18 to 22-year-olds in this room.
All the guys.
All the seminarians.
In the seminary. Are there other students?
No,
though?
it was just us seminarians. Just dudes. And Father Kevin and Brother Ed Luther, who at the time seemed like he was 90, but he's 90 now, so he wasn't that.
He's been 90.
He's been 90 for a long time. I love that man. And this woman who came to talk to us, and she was young and very nice. I think we thought she was very attractive. So there was perhaps
I feel like the tension in this room.
Oh, the
as
tension!
I'm picturing it.
The tension was huge. Yeah,
because she's coming in to tell you about theology of the body for the first time. Man and woman, he created them.
Yeah. So she was she got right into it and was talking about some really beautiful things, but
such as I'm just thinking of like maybe people who are listening who are not familiar.
Yeah. So she was talking a lot about Adam and Eve being naked in the garden and being naked without shame. And she said the word naked a lot. And you could tell like it was not going to take much more to set us off. And it did not. So, because at one point, as she's talking about this, like how in the garden being naked without shame foreshadows heaven being before God with like fully exposed, nothing to hide, and like how beautiful that is. And so she referred to this like looking on God face to face, like with your naked face. Now, my last name is Face. And she said, your naked face. We were sitting in a circle, and I think I did something like this, like, and we just lost it. All of us. And she was like, she didn't see me do that, and she didn't know my last name. So she's like, naked face. It's, and then we just completely derailed the whole lesson.
You guys lost it, and she lost you.
She definitely lost it. Yeah.
Did she ever?
Yeah, we had to explain it. And I had to be like, well, my last name's Face, so it'd be funny if I was naked. It was super embarrassing. And it still is.
And did you ever like apologize to her?
I was probably too embarrassed to apologize.
She's listening now.
She could be. I am sorry that I was so immature. It was a really great talk, though. I mean, I remember it still.
That's good.
So second generation.
Second generation. Yeah, it's kind of like the it's kind of like the internet. In the sense that like, you know how the younger generation, when they describe a conversation that they're having or that they had with their friend, they're like, yeah, so I was talking to my friend and then she said this and then I was like, maybe we should go. I should like, okay, so their thumbs are moving.
They're like miming their conversation with thumbs.
I notice when I talk to teenagers, they're like this when they're talking, like their thumbs are moving back and forth as though they're like scrolling and typing things on a smartphone. And so I remember first realizing that there was like a bit of a difference between how I talk about social media and how like people maybe like 5 to 10 years younger than I was were talking about social media because it was just fluid. Yeah. It wasn't like, and then I went onto social media. It was just like, there's not a divide between talking like in real life or not. It's just all communication. But then I think about, so they're like second generation, I would say, or like I don't know if they're second generation, but they're growing up
with it.
Yeah.
There wasn't a time for them that it.
Yeah,
was
they have no
not.
memories without it, right? And so they're not like shocked by like, oh, look at this filter. Like it might be fun and great and stuff, but they're not like,
Oh my gosh!
what can
you
this-
can put filters on. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm just thinking about like our parents' generation or grandparents where they're like, you do what? You know, they're just like astonished. And and so I'm thinking about like the blessing it is for me and for you as well, to be able to have so many for me like formative experiences of life and of like growing up and becoming a woman, and like for me like realizing that like the dignity of my body is like that wasn't like a question. I mean, of course, it's like a challenge to integrate that.
Yeah, but that was always the expectation.
Yeah, but it wasn't like new information. Whereas when I go to like a class or something now and I see baby boomers or like somebody even like older than that, when they're like learning about theology of the body for the first time, they're like, what?
Like, this was here the whole time?
Yeah, so I'm glad they're understanding about that, but I think it's awesome to just kind of like have it just as a part of our life, and for you as a part of your priesthood. And I think from now on we could just change our show into like a John Paul II fan club. I'm like looking over there.
Fans of the Deuce.
Theology of the Body book is sitting there. Well, yeah.
Do you want it?
We'll get it in a second. You're ready. We'll get it in a second. But I want to talk about JP2 on this episode and many ensuing episodes. And okay, I'm remembering in particular this one night when we were working on our book. It was kind of toward the beginning of book writing. Yet we were talking about like a lot of really emotional things, like memories.
Us?
Yeah. And so and it was way more than I was like planning on. Like I wasn't planning on writing a memoir with you. I was thinking about like writing about our vocations separately. And like we happen to be friends, but like here we are talking about like our friendship as the like point, as the main witness. And I was just like, this is super emotional. And I remember I was sitting on like our carpeted floor in this little walkway. David, remember how I like to sit in the walkway? And you're like, why are you sitting here of all places? Mercedes does that now.
Yeah. I think I do. Well, I remember you falling asleep on the carpet.
It's so comfortable.
I'm trying to remember which walkway you were laying in front of at our old house.
Yeah, I was sitting outside of our children's bedroom. So I'd shut their bedroom door and then I'd sit there for a while because they'd inevitably get up for like a drink of water. And so I put the image of Our Lady cradling baby Jesus like right there on the other wall, so I could just sit there and look at her and be like, you understand.
Like if anyone's walking through here, they're coming through me.
Yeah. And so I was praying. I was sitting there outside of our children's bedroom, and I was sitting on the carpet looking up at Mary and just praying from the depths of my heart and asking for the intercession of John Paul II. And I was like, man, you started this JP2 with your theology of the body. And I'm like, and here I am writing this book and it's getting all emotional and my heart is super involved. Dude, I'm a mom. Like I'm married. Am I supposed to be having these kind of like really passionate, emotional conversations like outside of my marriage and family? What does it mean? And I need an answer, and I need it to be like really clear because this is on you. So pray for me. Amen. And
so really like calm prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And
Raw though, that's beautiful.
It's like another version of the Serenity Prayer.
Yeah.
And so that was, I looked back, that was on February 15th, 2016. And then the next day, you emailed me and we were talking about some book details. And then I found this in our email. You said, also, did you hear about the letters between St. John Paul II and that lady? The secular... Wait, you read the rest of it. The secular... Did you see it? The secular...
All right. The secular media was all like, wait, what? But I have a feeling we might understand it.
And I was like, JP2 and the lady? And so... You didn't give me a link. You didn't say anything more than that. Well, so I just went to Google and I just like typed in JP2 and the lady. And all of these headlines show up. David, do we have the BBC Okay, it's up. So people are looking at the website. And it's like, can you read the headline, David?
Yeah, it says Pope John Paul letters reveal, in quotes, intense friendship with woman. And it shows, and it shows a picture of John Paul II and this woman in the woods. There's a tent set up, a couple chairs. He's wearing shorts. It looks like he, I don't know, just got done with the dip in the lake or something. He's kind of looking down. She's wearing a dress. Yeah.
I'm like, what is this? And so I'm scrolling through. I don't know if you can like scroll through and kind of tell me about this.
I can show the other pictures.
Okay, yeah.
I can show a picture of the woman.
Yeah, she is beautiful.
Anna Teresa. Here she is, Anna Teresa.
And so it is Anna Teresa Tymieniecka is her name, and I'm reading about their friendship. Apparently they hit it off when they met and they had like all this in common. She sought him out because she's fascinated by his work. She's a philosopher as well. Then they decided to write a book together. And then they traveled to see each other so that they could write this book over the course of 5 years. And then he when he came to the United States, he stayed at her house with her family. And apparently they went on a camping trip with some other people. And then there's this quote. There's this quote here. Maybe you can read this.
Here is one of the handful of transcendently great figures in public life in the 20th century, the head of the Catholic Church, in an intense relationship with an attractive woman.
So this is the day. Who is this?
This is Eamon Duffy from...
Professor of the History of Christianity at Cambridge University. And he's quoted in the BBC article about this. And I'm just reading on it, and my jaw is just open the whole time. I'm just like, are you kidding me? And so... Is that out of the shot now? And so... there's okay, this is just ridiculous. Okay, so there's the fact that I'm praying about whether I should write this book with you, and that is getting very emotional and intimate, and I'm just like,
you had to pray to the deuce.
But okay, is this ridiculous? Can we just laugh at him for a second? Because okay, all right, this is a little bit over the top, right? He's like, I'm searching for a way to say, to communicate the words, you belong to me, I belong to you. Can you find that part? Can you search for the I belong in the, do you have the article up, David?
No,
I don't want to
misquote. I just have all the
Deuce.
images, though.
Or maybe I should because I owe it to him.
I can look it up.
I owe him. Okay, no, it's fine. You can just look at the images if you want to let me know when they're ready. So what other images do we have up there?
You want to talk about scapular?
Oh yeah. So he wants to say, he's talking about the person as a gift. Mm-hmm. That God created us to be a gift and Absolutely. To give ourselves away. And so he's trying to express this to Anna Teresa. And so he wants to find a way to show her this. Mm-hmm. And so he decides to give her his scapula, which you wear right next to your chest, mm-hmm. underneath your clothing. And he asked her to wear it always so that he could feel her near to him, whether they're close or far away. And I'm like, dude.
It says in the caption of the scapular image, the scapular given to Miss...
Yeah. Tymieniecka. Yeah, he gave it to her.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so that was his gift, and they were writing these huge long letters to each other. She saved the letters and then sold them to a museum later. That was mm-hmm. smart.
Yeah.
And so I was just okay. Here's my question then. Mm-hmm. Could you grab that Theology of the Body?
I can.
Look at this book. Look at this book. Okay.
It's substantial.
Yeah. These are all these audiences that John Paul II presented and then put together into this man and woman he created them. But he wrote this and presented this after he met Anna Teresa. So he was already
Yes.
talking about philosophy and love and attraction and goodwill between men and women. But what are the chances that we have the theology of the body without her?
A bit of the spark to really dive into the theological implications of attraction. Is that what you're saying?
He's like, look, he said, because ahead of time, he said, here's this quote about raw material.
Mm-hmm.
He says that sensuality and emotionalism furnish the raw material for love. Mm-hmm. In other words, they create states of feeling within persons and situations. He's going on. He's being really poetic. Let me sum it up for a second. Basically, that what we feel and experience, our emotions and our attractions, can lead us into love. We can use that in order to love others. But I feel like he's like, let me think about that a little more. Could we talk about this like every week?
Every Wednesday.
Maybe for a year or 5. I'm grateful. I'm glad we can laugh about this. Should we keep this here just for...
Yeah, that's good. Good to laugh at.
I can show the other picture of them when they're older at the Vatican.
Oh, yeah. It's so sweet.
That's a cute...
He's like holding her face.
They're so cute.
She's smiling. Anyway, so I'm going to stop asking for his intercession now. David, let's change the subject.
All right.
I emailed you a little transcript. Do you have it?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so
this was unexpected.
I know. That's the best kind. Okay, so I emailed David right before when you were waiting for me to film. Hey,
I don't remember that
I
at
heard
all.
David imitating me on the microphone when you guys were doing the sound check.
Can't do a good
No,
job.
he definitely wasn't.
Yeah, no, he was like talking about like flipping his hair.
Yeah, that's the only way I can to imitate Amanda is by trying to like
tease your hair, tickle your hair.
I can do
that.
I can do pretty good impressions
Yeah.
of people who I'm around for a good amount of time, but for some reason I can't do like that great of an impression of Amanda.
Someone you impersonate regularly now is sitting beside me.
Yeah, I'm brushing up on my father, Matt.
It's like his voice is a lot lower, but I think you have like the cadence down.
Yes, especially because I listened to the audiobook. The audiobook.
So weird. Okay, but I like it. So I'm wondering, okay, I just want to read the transcript of a little conversation that Father Matt had with Jamal, our 10-year-old son, because context. Mm-hmm. You and I were planning out this episode, praying through it, mm-hmm. and taking some notes on what we might share with people. And then Jamal came in to say goodnight to me. Mm-hmm. And then we were on a Google Doc.
Yeah, because I was at the parish and you were at your house.
Yeah, you were across the country. And so we were writing back and forth on a Google Doc, and I wanted to show Jamal how it's like awesome that this can change in real time. Yeah. He's like, let me write something to him, right? So Jamal starts like kind of talking to you, right? And then you were going back and forth just on the text. Yeah. And so, okay, David, you be Father Matt.
So you guys were sort of talking through a Google Doc?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll read Jamal's sections, okay? And you be Father Matt.
Let me see if I can do a split screen here.
Ooh, getting fancy.
Okay, here we go. Okay. So I'm Father Matt. Mm-hmm. I think that it's almost time for bed. What do you think?
I have to go to my room now, but I can stay in my room reading till 9.
Nice. What are you reading?
Candy Shop War.
I love candy. To eat, though, not to read.
And then I say, you got to get going now, Jamal. And then Jamal's like, good night.
Good night.
Yeah, that was great.
Thank you.
That was really good.
Thank you.
I'm more embarrassed about that than I suspected I would be.
Speaking of embarrassing things, now we're in really deep now. Let's play the next clip. Can we play When Harry Met Sally?
Yes.
Okay.
Stand by.
This is great art.
What I'm saying is, and this is not a come on in any way, shape, or form, is that men and women can't be friends because the sex part always gets in the way.
That's not true. I have a number of men friends, and there is no sex involved.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
Yes, I
You
do.
only think you do.
That's not true.
I love his facial expression.
Okay. Let's tie this episode together now.
Yeah,
Like we didn't do for the previous episode.
best not to let this
We have like,
dangle.
you know, we have a lot of raw material
Yeah.
to work with. Okay. Do you know where we're going?
I can only guess.
Good thing we prayed.
Yeah.
Okay. What I really want to say is, you know, we could really sum up this whole episode just by saying, how are we called to love? And then saying the words of Christ, love one another.
As I have loved you.
And that would be the end. And yet, when we go to the Lord and ask him specifically, he shows us specifically
Yeah.
what that means in our own lives. And so, yes, there are many challenges because there's the cross, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so for each of us, we have a cross in our lives, and to follow in the footsteps of Christ, to live in his love, there's going to be challenges to that. It's going to hurt.
It's definitely going to hurt. Yeah. And it's going to be confusing and complicated. And there's going to be, I mean, again, looking at Christ's life, at his example, there's going to be betrayal, misunderstanding, but beauty, healing, redemption, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, how are we called to love like Christ, selflessly?
And so I think that it is very valid for others who look at us, who look at David and me and our marriage, look at you and your priesthood, us and our friendship, those who look at the lives of those who are listening, who are trying to live God's love, for others to observe that and say, that's not possible.
Yeah.
Right. Like that BBC article about John Paul II and Anna Teresa. Like it was pretty, what do I say? Moderate in their opinion about this. They said there's no evidence that he broke his vow of celibacy, but I feel like there's just this underlying like
there's no evidence, but come on.
There's no evidence.
Yeah.
Anyway, look at this photo, you know, and so many of the other articles that were coming out in commentary were almost people being like scandalized, asking like, is this a scandal that they were so close in their friendship? I think there's some validity to asking that question and thinking like, that can't be possible. How can it be possible for the two of them to have such an intimate friendship in their separate vocations, to be writing together and writing, sharing poetry together, sharing their hearts,
sharing deeply their feelings for one another, right? This desire to be close. Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's impossible. Like that, that clip, I think that there's so much truth in it. Like when Harry met Sally, when he says like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for men and women to be friends.
No, you don't. Yeah. Right. I mean, because there is so much of that human experience of like, no, this is really hard. And like so hard as to be impossible to do well, to do honestly, to do beautifully.
And so I'd like to land on the verse from Matthew chapter 19, verse 26. And just as I'm thinking about like the reason why I asked David to role play with me with being Father Matt and Jamal is not only because I think it's really funny, but also because I think that just everything about that to me shows like a snapshot of our lives, of our friendship. The fact that my husband can like imitate your voice so distinctly, and that you're having a conversation with my 10-year-old son, and that's normal and healthy and good in the context of our family, and that you and I are in the midst of that, like sharing our hearts just so openly with each other, and that it's like so life-giving. It's just like, man, I don't, not only does that seem improbable and I can understand how others would think that it is, but even for me personally, I'm like, how is that possible? Right?
Yeah.
But it's because of this.
Why?
It's because of this.
Okay. For human beings, this is impossible. But for God, all things are possible.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
It's supernatural. Right? I mean, but how are we called to love supernaturally? If we're only striving to live on a human level, it's gonna break, mm-hmm. right? It's gonna be selfish, mm-hmm. right? I mean, when Harry met Sally, you can tell, like, from a merely human perspective, yeah, that's not gonna work. Mm-hmm. And here we are as humans, right? So that's a part of who we are. But Christ is offering us even more, right? Mm-hmm. Like, yes, this is the situation. Yes, we're products of the garden, but still his grace is with us, right? Still he's there with us, mm-hmm. calling us to something better, showing us, leading us, guiding us. So
what would you say to those who are listening, Father Matt, who like are in a similar friendship as ours, in the sense that like one person has a vow of celibacy or is discerning a vow of celibacy, mm-hmm. and the other is accompanying that person in friendship, and maybe there are people who felt like I was feeling when I was like kneeling on the carpet, you know, asking John Paul II to pray for me, like, what is this? You know, can you speak a word of encouragement to those who are just wondering about, you know, the sort of deep friendship in mm-hmm. in a path that is so unusual? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the first part is, it is difficult, and it's supposed to be difficult. So don't let that trip you up, right? It's going to be hard and confusing, and but that's okay, right? There's something beyond that, through that. And the other piece is, you must be loving the person with the love of Christ, right? That if what you're trying to get out of this relationship is just like that human level, and there's this other piece of like discerning celibacy for you or for the other, whatever, like that isn't going to work, right? It has to be both people seeking God's love first, and to love the other with God's love, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And that's still going to be hard,
right? But it's only through God's love, yeah. that you can love the other person.
Absolutely.
I mean, that goes for every relationship, mm-hmm. and talking about this, friendships that are, you know, akin to ours in the sense of your vows in my marriage. Even though that's like very rare, maybe it's a bigger percentage of our listeners than like the typical percentage in the world. But I just, as we conclude here, I am grateful for everyone who's listening, and also I was grateful that God has allowed us to learn a lot of this, like allowed us to learn at a young age, mm-hmm. like mm-hmm. when we were first meeting each other, when we were kids, and that. Yeah. Right? I
mean, that had a huge impact, obviously, on our relationship, but the way that our friendship developed was from the beginning. When we met one another, it was already with this sense of loving the other through Christ, mm-hmm. right? And we're really blessed in that way, that's not something we had to like learn halfway through our friendship.
Oh, good idea.
Like, oh yeah, I should respect you, right? Right. Or that like this.
Or maybe God is in this, but like.
But like this raw material, like this is also good and beautiful, a gift from God, right?
Yeah.
Human, but blessed in us. Mm-hmm. And that we had that going the whole way, for sure has been integral, right? Mm-hmm. To be where we are now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're giving it back, right? Giving it back to God, mm-hmm. and praying that he blesses that and multiplies that for those who are listening as well.
I'm pretty sure he will.
Amen.
Amen.
We'd like to thank the Congregation of Holy Cross for giving Father Matt permission to join us here in this ministry, to do podcasts and writing and offering talks and retreats, you know, once talks and retreats happen again in person.
Thank you also to Amanda Vernon patrons. Amanda Vernon patrons support Amanda and her ministry as she does this beautiful work. And all of that support helps feed Amanda's kids, which is super important.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. For real. And it's just been amazing, especially during quarantine, to still be able to record a new song every Sunday and send those out to patrons to continue on with artwork full-time as a family, as a profession, and as our ministry. To become a patron, visit amandavernon.com/patron.
May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Go in peace.
Thanks be to God.